So now we're going to look at the materials, the physical materials that we're actually going to engage with in order to get this map into our minds. So, starting with number one, the map of the Torah. This is actually what the map of the Torah can look like. You've got an entire column for Bereshis, Shemais, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Dvarim. And going down vertically, you have right on the side the number of the chapter in Hebrew, the number in English. There happens to be also a siman, an English word, which is a memory system. And we're going to talk about that later, but we're not touching on it now. I'm just mentioning that it is there. And then you have a very brief one-line description of what's going inside that perek, what's happening, the storyline. If there's mitzvahs, it will tell you how many mitzvahs in that particular perek. By the way, out of the entire Chumash, there are about 208 prakim. I would call about 187, those 208 are really active. What I mean by that is that out of 208 prakim, slightly over 20 are one or two lines, but they're still divided as a perek. So out of the 208, really 187 prakim or so, almost all of them are storyline. How many are only mitzvahs? No storyline whatsoever. And the incredible answer is about 7. Really, yeah. About 7 prakim are only mitzvahs. All the rest are either storyline or they are categories of information. Like we mentioned with Tetzaveh and Truma. Categories of information in terms of the different materials in the Mishkan. Or in Vayikra, the different korbanos that are brought. So those are categories of information contained in a perek. So really you only got these 3 types of categories in the entire Chumash map. Storyline, that's the most predominant of those 3. Then you have mitzvahs, there's only about 7 chapters which are only mitzvahs. And then you've got sections of categories, which do take up a perek, each one. So for example, Metzora. So you'll find all the simanim of tzaras in perek Yud Gimel in Vayikra, and then perek Yud Daled, the mitzvah of Taharas HaMetzora, the purification process of someone who's a Metzora. So that's a section and it's contained in that perek. So it's easy to identify where it is. Once you get to understand, almost all the information about, let's say, forbidden animals. You'll find that in Perek Yud Aleph in Parsha Shmini in Vayikra, but you also see it in Perek Yud Daled, Parsha Re'eh, later on in Dvarim. So you start to recognize, I see that this mitzvah seems to be repeated over here, and then that creates a question. I wonder what the difference is between the report of those mitzvahs in this perek versus that perek. So these are ways that the mind will be able to organize information because it's a map in the mind of the child. So this is what we call the map that we want to deliver into the mind of the child. They'll be able to cross-reference from. The next item I want to show you, if we call it number 2, is the chronological description of the events in that 2,488-year period of the entire Chumash, the Oraisa. So this is from Rabbi Haber. You can get it through Torah Masorah. It's a chart which I like to have cut out into strips, and then the children will reconstruct each part of the strip. So you look closely at this timeline, you'll notice, look at the title, Timeline of the Chumash. And you've got right under it, you've got this long yellow strip that tells you a span of 2,488 years. And you can see at the end of each of those arrows, at the end of the strip, on your right side it says from creation of the world, and all the way till the end, till the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's what it covers. And if you want to look beneath that, you'll notice how many psukim are covered by that. It's 5,845. Now look at the blue strip, and you'll see we're looking now, Sefer Bereshis. On the right-hand side, it says 1,534 psukim. And then you've got the actual span of 2,309 years. Now, if you recognize that the entire Chumash covers a period of 2,488 years, 2,309 years, is the vast majority of that period. So Bereshis actually is the vast majority of the time span of the entire Chumash. Vast majority. I don't have the exact percentage, but it looks like it's close to mid 80%. So you'll see in this blue section representing Sefer Bereshis that there are two icons. The icon to the right is of the sun, moon, and that is really an icon of creation. Underneath it says, from creation of the world. Now look to the second icon, and it says, until the death of Yosef. So that icon is representing Yosef HaTzadik on his deathbed. Then to the farther left, you'll see there are 5 bullets that really is a summary of the entire Chumash Bereshis. Creation, bullet number 1. Noach and the Mabul. Here it's written Noach and the Ark, bullet number 2. Number 3, the life of the Avos. And number 4, birth of the Shvatim. And number 5, the descent into Mitzrayim. So those are 5 summary lines to describe a 2,309-year period that covers all the parashas in Chumash Bereshis. Going now down to the second strip, which is colored brown for Sefer Shmos. You've got 1,209 psukim in comparison to 1,500 in Sefer Bereshis. Then moving along, you'll see it spans 140 years. So the entire Chumash Shmos, from the beginning of the description of all the Shvatim and their children in Parsha Summaries, all the way till the end of Chumash Shmos, 140 years. And that spans from the death of Yosef, as you see in the icon to the right, all the way to the left, till the building of the Mishkan, which takes place in Perek Mem, in Chumash Shmos, and that covers that 140 years. Now go to the furthest left, and you will see there are again 5 points that summarize the entire Chumash Shmos. Slavery in Mitzrayim, number 1. Number 2, Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus. Number 3, the giving of the Torah, Matan Torah. Number 4, the Chet HaEgel, the golden calf. And number 5, the building of the Mishkan. That means to say that all the information the child will learn in the entire Chumash Shmos really falls into one of those 5 categories. Any parsha you're learning in Chumash Shmos or any perek, you can identify, which of these 5 categories does it belong to, and the child will be able to identify. Moving down, Sefer Vayikra. This is like a pink reddish type of color. Only 859 psukim. I say only because you compare that to the previous 2 Chumashim, and you'll see that it's about 2/3 the size. Moving to the left, you see 2 icons again. The icon to the right is the building of the Mishkan, so it's taking over from where Shmos left off. And then you notice that the entire time period of Vayikra is 1 month, barely 30 days. Go to the end of that line and you'll see the second icon is until the counting of Bnei Israel in the 2nd year in the Midbar. And there you'll see the coins on top of those little men as the icon. Those coins obviously are half a shekel. That's how the Yidden were counted in Parshas Kitisa, Perek Lamed. So now move to the furthest left again, and you'll see 4 lines that summarize the entire Chumash Vayikra. The laws of the Korbanos, the laws of the Kohanim, the laws of Tumah, and then a number of mitzvahs, many mitzvahs. So here again, you're helping the children to organize the breakdown of Chumash. Going to number 4, the green strip for Sefer Bamidbar, you see 1,288 psukim, almost equivalent to Shmos, still less than Bereshis, which has the most psukim. Going to the left, you'll see 2 icons telling us that from the counting of Bnei Israel in the 2nd year of the Midbar, which is where Vayikra left off, till the end of the 40th year in the Midbar, which is to the far left, you'll see an icon of a path, a white path, and a couple of bare trees, and in the distance you see those kind of sandy mountains, hills. So that depicts the Midbar, the traveling in the Midbar, and that takes place over a period of 38 years and 9 months. So from the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim till we finished our wanderings in the Midbar, that's the period of time. To the furthest left yet again, you'll notice there are 5 lines. Number 1, the tribes around the Mishkan, that's describing where all the Shvatim were located around the Mishkan itself in the Midbar. Then the traveling of the Mishkan. Number 3, the spies, the whole story with the spies. Number 4, the story with Kairach. And lastly, the wars with Sichain and Og and Midian. And that covers Sefer Bamidbar. And our last purple strip, which is Sefer Dvarim, and you see it spans only a period of 67 days. So 955 psukim, starting with the icon to the far right, from when Moshe Rabbeinu begins his review on Rosh Chodesh Shvat of the 40th year in the Midbar, and he's teaching all of Klal Yisrael. I think you can see the icon of Moshe Rabbeinu was slightly larger than the other people because he was 10 amos high. Then to the far left, you'll notice the icon of Moshe Rabbeinu on his deathbed, and beneath is written, until the death of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was the 7th of Adar of the 40th year. And then followed by that was 30 days of Avelus, and that already takes us into Sefer Yeshua. Now to the furthest left of this purple strip for Dvarim are only 3 items that is a summary of the entire Chumash Dvarim. Number 1, a review of many of the mitzvahs. Number 2, repetition of the Aseret HaDibros. And number 3, Shiras Ha'azinu, the song of Ha'azinu, which takes you pretty much to almost the end of the Torah with Zois HaBracha. So what I'm going to ask you to do is take this particular chart, cut it into sections. There are 5 sections for the 5 Chumashim, but take the top one as well, cut it up. Then create a jigsaw out of it by either cutting up each one of the items inside, or my preference would be make a black and white photocopy or write out all these different pieces of information on separate cards and now have the children sequence them correctly based on this as a control chart, which means that they have to put these pieces together and figure out, oh, I've got this here, 140 years. Oh, I think that belongs to Shmos. Oh, 2,309, yeah, that's Chumash Bereshis. Oh, here's only 30 days. Oh, that's Vayikra. Oh, 67 days. Oh, that's Devarim. And they'll slowly put these pieces together until they construct it from memory. They're not sure of their answer. Go to the control chart to check. So this becomes an interactive information that the child is getting into his mind. And what we're slowly building over here is that between the different materials I'm introducing you to, the map of the Torah, and this, if you want to call it a chart, a timeline of the entire Chumash, slowly these things are coming together and they are helping reinforce the big picture of time and space of Chumash, Bereshis, Shmos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Dvarim. Okay, so item number 3 is the Chumash outline and Parsha Summaries. What does that mean? It's a very simple booklet. Basically, you open up to page 1. You can read the introduction as well, but page 1, you'll notice that it begins to give you the entire outline of Chumash Bereshis. It's really a kitzah of Chumash Bereshis, so that you see Parshas Bereshis has 6 prokim, Parshas Noah has another 6, from 6 through 11, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is 6 prokim. Then you got Lech Lecha, Vayera, etc., all the way till the end of Chumash Bereshis, and then it starts Kitzah Shmos. And it gives you the entire Kitzah of Chumash Shmos, and all it is 1 line for every single perek, all the way till the end of Dvarim. And then move to page 13, you will see, now we're going to go through the Kitzah of Parshas Bereshis, and for every one of the prokim, there's a breakdown of the major points in each perek. So now you've got the breakdown. So what you're doing is going klal uprat. Klal means the big picture, prat means going into more detail. So we're scaffolding the information. So this is a cross-reference work for the children to work with. You're going to see as we introduce you to more materials how this all comes together. But essentially this is a reference book both for the teacher and for the students, where every single perek in the entire Chumash is broken down first as a title for that perek, and then what are the major points in that perek, going through the entire Chumash. So this is an English summary of all the parashas, and there's a Kitzah HaParashas on Hamisha Chumshei Torah, which is in Hebrew. Same idea. It's simply a breakdown of what's going on in every single perek. So that comes together with number 4, which is really the Chumash memory system manual, and this is part of building block number 6, which I mentioned earlier, there's really a very close relationship between this building block number 3, the Chumash outline, the storyline of Chumash, and building block number 6, which has many manifestations. Building block number 6 is memory system for Targum mitzvahs, memory system for learning where all the information is in Chumash. Later on, you'll apply the memory systems for Mishnayos and Gemara. But right now we're talking about Chumash. So this manual comes both with building block number 3 and building block number 6. And I do recommend reading the introduction. It really does help a lot. But even if you're going to skip right to the first page, what you're going to see here is a control version. Control means you can check if you got things right. So when the child will learn to sequence all the pictures in Parsha Summaries, I'm going to show you in a few moments. We've got a picture for every parak. And the memory system will go with that. And which parak it's in. Parak Aleph, Parak Beis, Parak Gimel, Parak Dalet, Parak Hey, which is chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. All this is laid out in this control book. So that every single parsha takes up one page. And you've got the entire 54 parshas of the entire Chumash laid out in this Chumash memory manual. So now we're ready for item number 5, which is really getting to the meat of what we're describing here. And that is, a picture speaks 1,000 words. And because that's a simple reality, the Torah itself reflects that idea. Because the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Gimel Mishnah Ches, say Chazal in the name of Rebbe Meir, anyone who forgets something from their learning of Mishnayos, Ma'ala Kasuv, the pasuk applies to him, Ki ilu mischayev benafshoy. He's like forfeited his soul. Woo, that sounds really serious. Shenema, now the Mishnah brings a support for that. Hishamelecha, be very careful. Pentishkach et hadvarim asher ra'u einecha. In case you forget the items your eyes saw. Now that pasuk is taken from Devarim, Perek Hey, where Moshe Rabbeinu is reminding us of Mamad Hasinai, which took place in Perek Chaf in Parshas Yisrael, way before. So over here, I'm being given a verse that's describing why I shouldn't forget what I learned, because the pasuk says, in case you forget what your eyes saw. Oh, so you're telling me that I've got to see my learning? How do you do that? So we've talked about this in much more detail in building block number 6, memory systems, where we quoted Rav Moshe Feinstein as describing to one of his Talmidim, who said it's not really fair that Rebbe has a photographic memory and never forgets anything. So Rav Moshe Feinstein Atzal explained that he doesn't really have a photographic memory, it's just that there's 2 things that his mind does, which is number 1, he's mispah, he's amazed, awed by everything he learns. And that creates a deep impression. When you're awed, you're amazed, you're wowed by what you learn, the information is way more penetrating than just reading the information. So that's number 1. Number 2, he would visualize the information. Now that's very important to know because almost all of the Chumash, as we've described, is storyline, which means you can visualize the information as you're reading it, as you're learning it. And children who enter first grade, before they're learning the Chumash itself, already have a picture, kaviyachol, so to speak, of Chumash in their mind because they've been learning the weekly Parsha. And it's all storyline, the vast majority. The entire Bereshis is all storyline. There's 3 mitzvahs in the entire Chumash Bereshis from Targum mitzvahs, and they're plotted in different places. But it's only a pasuk here and there. One pasuk in Perek Aleph, pasuk Chaf Ches, which talks about the mitzvah Puravu, and then you've got in Perek Yud Zayin, you've got the mitzvah of Bris Milah, and later on you've got the mitzvah of Gida Nashe, which is in Perek Lamed Beis, pasuk Lamed Gimel. So all the rest of the 5,842 psukim of Chumash Bereshis is all storyline. So it's describing a story that you can visualize in your mind, and you actually do. So what ends up happening is that when we understand what Rabbi Meir is saying in this Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, he's telling us that I should be careful not to forget what my eyes saw. Well, I learned Psukim or Mishnayos or Gemara, so what do you mean my eyes saw? And the answer is, visualize the information. That's what Rav Moshe Feinstein Atzal claimed he used to do. Mishnayos, the vast majority of Mishnayos is visual. If you really think about it, the vast majority is describing actual scenarios that you can play in your mind. even though it sounds like it's abstract, but if you look carefully, the words are describing an actual scenario. Sukkah, Masechta Sukkah is all like that. Shkolim, Tamid, Midas, for sure. Even Yuma, there's so much that's visually being described over there. Probably the easiest Masechta in the whole of Shas was probably Kalim, because it's describing physical items that the children were completely familiar with in their daily lives. You look at even Brachas, which is talking about Me'ei Masai Keren Shema Be'arvin. Mishasha Kohanim Nichnasim Le'echol B'Trumasan. So you visualize the Kohen who just went into the mikveh, he came out, he's drying himself, and now he's walking home, and as he comes home, it's already Seisa Kohavim because he went to the mikveh just at sundown. You visualize this, and you realize the Mishnah is describing a visual sequence. And when you learn that way, the information is much more penetrating because you're not just trying to remember words, you're remembering something that's played out visually in your mind. And that's really the power of Hisham Elecha. Pen tishkach et advarim asher ra'u einecha. Oh, so it's all about re'iyah. It's all about seeing, visualizing the information. There are lots of interesting makaras to talk about in relationship to this, but that's not the place right now. But the point I'm bringing out is very simple. The Chumash Bereishis is all visual. The vast majority of Shemos is visual. Vayikra is categories, but it's still visual when you start understanding what the mitzvahs are in the description of the various karbanos. So you look carefully, you start realizing, oh my gosh, even Mishnah Torah, Dvarim, is a lot of its repetition of what's happened before, a lot of new mitzvahs, but when you even listen to the mitzvah, most of the mitzvahs are visual. And you start looking at the Torah that way, it will change your mind. It will improve your mind. It will improve your memory. And for children to then have, and this is where we're going to now talk for a few minutes, an actual picture for every perek in the entire Chumash. And that's what I'm going to describe right now, is that if you've got a picture for every perek, and you have a way to explain what's going on in every single picture, on the back of the card is the information that is a kitzur of that picture, of that perek. So what you're actually looking at over here is this paragraph, so to speak, is actually the exact same paragraph, chapter 1, as in the Chumash outline Parsha Summary book. And the title at the top, Creation of the Universe, is the exact same title, the one-line title, that's in your Chumash map. So what you're really doing is you're helping the child see the organization of the information as it unfolds in his mind. Oh, this belongs to Chumash Bereishis, Parshas Bereishis, Perek Aleph, creation of the universe, creation of Adam, very simple stick figure. Oh, Perek Gimel, the entire story of the Nachash and all its details. Again, on the back of all these cards is a summary of what's going on in that perek. So these are some of the materials that the children will engage in order to start getting the map into their minds. As they matrix, that means to sequence, as in a picture form, as they matrix Parshas Bereishis, what they'll be able to do is put together Perek Aleph, which is number 1, which rhymes with sun, and here's a picture of the sun, that's the memory system, and now you've got the picture of Brias HaOlam. We'll be talking about that in much more detail as I go sequentially through the entire Chumash. Right now I'm just sharing with you the actual materials we have to support injecting the map of Chumash in the mind of the child. So you've got the 6 prokim over here as a summary, and then how it breaks down as a matrix with all the different pictures. And when the children are able to do this from memory, that means they are taking from their mind and they can reconstruct this on paper, on a table. And then they can do this with the entire Chumash Bereishis, and then do it with Shmos and Vayikra, Bamidbar, Dvarim. How does a kid feel if he's able to reconstruct this himself? Because he's got the information over here. So we have a card like this for every single one of the parashas. So this item would really count as number 6. You could really say that it's still part of the memory Chumash manual, because really what it is a cutout from Parshas Bereishis, and you've got the summary at the top. So you don't have to create this yourself, you can take it out of the manual. But the idea is that every child would be able, if he wants, to have a separate card with the parsha that he's working on and its sequence. And he goes to check his work against this. And the next item is number 7, which are the actual title strips for every perek. So in my hand here, we've got 208 strips. Creation of the universe, chapter 1. Creation of man, chapter 2. Oh, Tamar tricks Yehudah, Parshas Vayeshev. Oh, that's in chapter 38. Oh, 4 items of Geula in reference to chapter 6 in Chumash. Moving ahead, oh, the making of the uniforms of the Kohanim. So you'll find that in Parshas Tetzaveh, Perek Havches. These are all memory systems. I'm going to teach you the Simanim very soon. But the idea really is that you've got strips that the children will learn to match this strip to the picture. So creation of the universe, creation of man, oh, that will go next to the appropriate picture. So they will matrix it. And of course, the more materials that you're introducing, the more interactive activities, games the children can play. So for example, as the children learn, let's say the first 6 pictures, now you can call it out at random, hold up the picture, and the child, his partner or his team or the class has to say, oh, that's when Cain killed Hevel, that's Perek Dalet. Very good. Are you right? Check it on the back. Oh, let's pull up another card at random. Oh, that's Perek Vav, at the end of Parshas Bereishis, where Hashem warns that if we don't do Teshuvah, Hashem's going to bring a mabul to the world. Oh, so you have the children pull up a card, and then the partner or the rest of the class or the team has to say what's that card representing. Another possibility is the child will read off one of these strips, and he reads the building of Noach's Ark. So they all call out, oh, Parshas Noach, Perek Vav. Avram, go. Oh, Lech Lecha, Perek Yud Beis in Parshas Lech Lecha. The Akedah. Oh, so they'll say, oh, yeah, that's Perek Hav Beis. So you have the kids playing games where they have to tell you which perek it's in, or they have to pull up the correct card. They have to pick up a card of the Akedah, chapter 22, and match it with the title card, which says the Akedah. The child pulls up, Avraham go, Lech Lecha. Oh, so the other kid, who's his partner, or the other team has to pull out the picture card, which has a picture of Lech Lecha, where you see Avraham Avinu leaving with the camels. We're going to see that as we do all this in sequence. But I'm just giving you some of the very simple activities that children will be able to play as you add on more materials. So item number 8, you have a card which has the description of every single perek. 1 card per perek, blank on the other side, so that what ends up happening is that when the children really start to learn not just the titles, but the information that's represented within those titles. So a kid will read off, the 3rd day Hashem created land, sea, and vegetation. Oh, so then the other kid will say, oh, that's Perek Aleph. Now it's his turn, and he pulls out a card, and it might say, Hashem made 4 rivers, Pishon, Gichon, Hidekel, and Frat. So the other kid who might already know, oh, that's Perek Beis, will call out Perek Beis even before he's finished reading the whole line. But the idea is that as the children become baki, they start to master the information that's contained in each perek. You can now read out random lines from the card that is actually the back of the control card. Do you remember the picture, which has the information on the back? So what I'm reading for you right now is the exact same card without the picture. So the children will be able to read any line they want, and the other kid or the team have to say which perek that's in. So these are ways that the children will be interacting and reinforcing the map. Slowly, sequentially, 1 step at a time, 1 perek at a time, learning 2 or 3 prakim, do chazara, another 2 or 3, and now we finish Parshas Bereishis. Start Parshas Noach, Perek Vav, go to Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Yud Aleph, oh, and keep doing Chazara of the previous prakim in Bereishis, and now all the rest of Noach, till you get to Perek Yud Beis, Lech Lecha, and we keep doing Chazara of the pictures, and the title cards, and random lines within the Perek itself. And these are ways that you're going to have the children really remembering what's where. And when they've finished creating this filing system within the brain, that's where, with continuous chazara, the children will then have this permanently, so to speak, in their mind. And whenever they learn a new detail in Chumash, in Medrash, or a story, or Targum mitzvahs, their brain, without consciously categorizing it, will place it in the right file. Because that's how the brain works. The brain works by way of association, so that your mind is constantly taking in new information and figuring out, where do I put this? So if you've got a category that makes sense to put this information, that's where your brain will place it. So the analogy I often like to give is one of a very busy office. So one busy office has papers all over the place. But the problem with that office is there's no filing system, no drawers, no cubby holes. And even if they are, they're not being used. They're not being labeled and not being properly utilized. So what ends up happening is if you lose something or you need to find something, you'll spend ages searching. Look at the second office. It's exactly the same office except this one, you have a busy mess of a lot of papers all over the place, but you've got a filing cabinet. And in the filing cabinet is categories. Oh, bills. And that's broken down into utilities, phone, gas, electric, etc. And then you've got this piece of paper here and you know where it goes. Oh, you've got an invoice. Oh, that goes in invoices. Invoices for real estate or invoices for this particular vendor. And so what ends up happening is even when the office is busy, it's a mess that you can easily clean up and find information because there's a file, a cabinet, there's a drawer, there's a cubby hole, there's a shelf for every item that will come into this office. And if you get something that doesn't have a category, oh, we've never had this before. Great. So you open up a new file. So that's what we're doing with Tariq Mitzvahs, and that's what we're doing with these 178 prakim of Chumash in order to help the children have in advance a map in the Torah so that they can navigate wherever they are. So they can navigate wherever they will be inside the Chumash. So let's look at now item number 9. Item number 9 is the same card as before, picture card, blank on this side, which means the children pull up the picture and the other member or his chavrusa or his partner or the team and the rest of the class has to say what's going on in that perek. Or they have to pull up the card that is the information card or the title card, creation of the universe. And you'll do this with, let's say, 6 to 10 or 12 cards at a time, and the children will have to sequence this correctly. So you pull up this at random, and eventually they'll place out 1 through 12. Or you can have a game where you have match memory. You place down 12 cards, first 12 prakim, with 12 title strips, and you place them out on the table. You go first, pick up 2 cards, 1 picture and 1 strip, see if they match. If they don't, put it back down. Now it's my turn, and we play match memory, where the goal is to collect as many of the correct matching picture, perek, cards, strips as I possibly can. So the children will come up with other games that they can come up with, but the idea is that you're having the kids do the work themselves. It's not about me teaching you what's in every perek. It's about you reinforcing it once you know how to use these cards. And instead of coming to me to find out what's next, hey, you've got a map, literally, of the entire Chumash. Oh, you can go to the Chumash outline and the Parsha Summaries to go check your work. Or if you're going to the next advanced level, you'll go to the Hebrew version. And you can always check your work inside the Chumash memory system where it's all matrixed for you. So these are materials to have the children teach themselves the structure, outline of Chumash.